senhor deve saber que o Brasil descobriu há alguns anos uma jazida de petróleo a 7.000 metros de profundidade, abaixo da camada de sal, que pode nos transformar numa potência petroleira internacional. E o pré-sal, o óleo tirado do pré-sal, mesmo que um barril de petróleo caia a $8, o pré-sal ainda é economicamente viável. Qual o interesse dos Estados Unidos, o que houve que se pode provar da interferência norte-americana, sobretudo da participação de Michel Temer nessa espionagem sobre o pré-sal no Brasil?
We have published a number of documents about the pre-salt oil finds off the coast of Brazil. The deposits are viewed to be something like 4 times the Brazilian existing deposits, so they're extremely significant. It's quite expensive to get down to the ocean through the salt, to the rock, to get them. But once you get them, the oil doesn't need much refinery, there's not much sulfur in it. So it's quite profitable from that point on. Well, the existing condition was that Petrobras would have 30% guaranteed revenue stream from the pre-salt oils. And various oil-related interests were going to the US Embassy and complaining about this condition. So some of the political parties in Brazil were speaking about that and saying that they would prefer that Chevron and ExxonMobil have access with no exclusivity, even at 30% for Petrobras. Okay, so this is actually very interesting argument. What is the best way for Brazil to license its oil deposits that best benefits the people of Brazil? And the basic argument is along these lines. If the state is to run in a coherent way when it is in competition with other states and large transnational corporations, then it needs some kind of revenue, and oil is a strong revenue stream that can empower the state. Okay. And on the other side of the equation, there's the argument, but if there's one company that, even if it's owned by the state, that has preferential access, then it will get lazy, and it won't be very good at drilling oil because it will have no competition. Okay, so these are the basic arguments. Also along here, that if there's too much competition in drilling the oil, then the price will come down too much, and the state won't get as much in terms of licensing fees. So if you look at the cable that we published from December 2009, and there has been some reportage on it already, but I think not the most interesting part. To my mind, the most interesting part is an admission that the most profit to the government would come if Petrobras had 30% rights. So that is an admission. And does the US Embassy claim that the most profit to the Brazilian state would occur if Petrobras had this 30%? Okay. Because Chevron and the other big US oil companies would say, if Petrobras gets 30%, it's not worth it to us. Okay, it's not worth for us to actually do the drilling. We could just be involved in the financing. Okay. But Gazprom and the Chinese oil company, Sino Oil, they would be able to outbid Chevron and Exxon. They would give more money because they can take less profit. Why? Because the Chinese just want the oil. They actually don't care about the profit. They can break even. And so they are willing to give Brazil more money. And therefore, the Chinese, under such arrangement, and other state-based oil companies will always be able to outbid Exxon, which has $269 billion a year revenue. So it's still a very big company. So I think it's very interesting about this question as to Petrobras really is a question about what type of state Brazil wants. Does it want a strong state, or does it want a very weak state that has major foreign oil companies and transnationals taking control of the central resource? You can perhaps look at it another way, which I don't think anyone has looked at in Brazil, which is, what are the strong Brazilian state institutions? What is the strongest? I think it's the military and Petrobras. I think these are very strong state institutions in Brazil, and I think in comparison, all the other state institutions are weak. So if you marginalize Petrobras, you are relatively empowering the military as a center of gravity of state organization. So I think that could be a problem. Of course, there's two reasons why this is being done in relation to the pre-salts. Number one is domestic politics. It is that Petrobras is considered to be allied to PT because of Dilma was there, because she's put her people there, and because Dilma's policy benefited Petrobras and her future policy benefited Petrobras. So institutionally, Petrobras feels that its interests are best served by PT. So that makes the other parties want to reduce its power by taking revenue away from it. Then, this is a way that you can curry favour with the United States, is to make it easier for Chevron and ExxonMobil to get access to some of that oil, and that's what's spoken about in our cables, the constant desire by those US oil companies to get access that Petrobras has. So you can curry favour with Americans that way. Now, there's different philosophical traditions on how you run a state. Okay. So what about state capitalism? Because that's what Petrobras is, it's state capitalism. Where you have a company structure which is controlled at the organizational level by the state. What's the difference between that type of control and the control that comes from laws and deals? You have to give us a certain percent in order to have this extraction right. You're not allowed to act in a certain way, or your company gets fined, or your people get prosecuted. These are all elements of control. And so what has broadly happened since the early 80s, probably since the early 70s in the developed countries, probably since the mid-80s in developing countries, is that there's been a shift to how you regulate institutions. But that only works if the system of regulation is uncorruptible and the system of legislation is uncorruptible. Then it doesn't matter who controls the institution, you control the laws. But that only works if you can enforce the laws and detect when the laws are being broken. And we know in the oil sector there is so much money that becomes impossible. Already we have a very corrupt Brazilian parliament, with a number of hundreds of Brazilian parliamentarians having been investigated for one form of corruption or another. So if you permit Chevron or Exxon or Gazprom or Sino Oil to earn billions of dollars from Brazil, why not take 10 million and give this as a bribe? This is nothing when tens of billions of dollars are at stake. So this is a very interesting question about how you regulate very wealthy organizations in your society, like oil companies. And what do you want the dominant features of the state to be? Do you want to balance the military maybe with oil? Is there another way to balance it?